Okay, welcome to episode 4 of the Total Hockey Training podcast. I am your host, Sean Scahan, and today my guest is Cody Dray. Cody is the president and agent at ImportSports. Cody, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, tell us about yourself and your background and not only the sport of hockey, but tell us how you became the president and agent at ImportSports.
Yeah, I guess a little bit of background on myself is, obviously I played hockey myself. I was a goalie. I was fortunate enough to go overseas and play a couple of years in Sweden. And that's really kind of where I got that idea. I always kind of was, the business kind of person, from a young age. But when I went over to Sweden and, I first started getting involved with agents, advisors, sort of stuff like that, and watching teammates kind of go through the same process, that's kind of where I birthed the idea of we were pretty low end hockey players in terms of the scale overseas. So obviously we didn't get the prime attention and stuff that the superstars get, which is totally fair. But we decided to kind of start a business, kind of representing a couple of friends, flipping them to the lower end teams and stuff. Like some of the contracts were worth $0 and stuff like that. And me and Adrian really liked it and stuff from the beginning, even though we were doing like I said, deals worth literally pennies. But kind of birthed it from there, and then it kind of snowballed, and here we are today, obviously.
Oh, that's awesome. So you obviously had a passion for the game that you just saw the value of what, maybe your friends who were playing that were maybe higher level that were getting from people like yourself, and you kind of saw your vision and went after it, right?
Exactly. Again, I think I realized pretty quick that I wasn't going to the NHL, at least not in this lifetime. So, we decided to kind of start helping people and see if we can be a part of someone's journey, that can, and, has the talent to get to that level. So, it's been a super interesting career and, a lot of highs and lows, through players, through business, like anything, let's say, but, we're extremely fortunate.
I love it. So tell us about, like, what do you do on a daily basis when it comes to, okay, there's games this weekend or tonight, whatever. Like what is your goals with your clients, and also, maybe finding new clients.
Yeah. That's a very good question because getting a little bit older now, I'm 27. I started this when I was 21. So,
Getting older,
when I
huh?
was when I was 21, I could do it for 24 hours straight and, not have to sleep and stuff like that. But the body's requiring a little bit more of that lately. But it's pretty go, go, go. Like, for instance, today, you wake up at, let's say, 8, answer a bunch of emails from stuff that happened last night or watching, clips or injury reports and stuff like that. For instance, there's a couple European games going on right now that I should be watching that I'll have to catch up on later. And then, then the North American side starts around 4. Everybody's getting to the rink, everyone's figuring out their lineups, everybody wants to talk. And then everyone wants to talk after the game. So, it's pretty much, from the second I wake up to, when I go to bed, that's, usually the routine.
Okay. That's awesome. And so, when you go to watch a game and say you have a client on your roster playing in that game, do you offer him feedback after the game, or do you wait a little bit? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So, for instance, one of our guys was in town in Gatineau a couple weeks back, and they got in the night before, so we went for dinner. Took a walk around the town, kind of just talked, business, and kind of just talking about how stuff is leading up towards the draft and sort of stuff like that. And then obviously I met him after the game as well. Went to the game, just kind of gave my feedback, my 2 cents. More just kind of catching up and just letting him know that I'm there, sort of thing.
Okay, love it. So my question next is, like, what is your value to the player? For example, you see a lot of these younger kids, 13, 14 years old here in the States as well, who are approached by advisors, and
Mhm.
you still have that kind of, I hate to say old school, but that opinion of, like, oh, he doesn't need an advisor. And it's like, well, now you see what the value the advisor can bring in the role. And so, what do you think about that? Do you think the hockey world especially is turning into, like, a lot of these kids, most of the kids probably in the US have advisors who are Division 1 college players. And, what do you think the advisor can do for someone versus a kid who doesn't have an advisor?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really just having an outlet. I mean, a lot of, parents, will kind of try to take that role on. But I mean, I know as a kid, I mean, obviously my dad is probably my best friend, but the last person I wanted to talk to or hear it from after a game was my dad, right? It's having a third party person that, can really give you an honest opinion and someone that's really vouching for you. I mean, it's, all the resources are there. Let's say like, you get the strength connections, you get the off season training kind of connections. There's, for the right advisor, I mean, they could bring a lot to the table. And I mean, when you're talking about a really high end athlete, someone that's NHL bound, high end D1 bound, um, these players are going to get there by themselves, in my opinion, like, to that level at some point. But it's once you get there, it's a business. And once it's a business, it's about having people around you that you trust. You look at someone that's an NHL superstar. I mean, would an agent of any company do any difference for a player like that at that level? Probably not. But, who do you trust the most when you're making big bucks and stuff? Who's going to be in your corner? Who's going to be there when, shit isn't going right? And that's kind of my opinion on an advisor is rather than, what kind of resources and all that sort of stuff. I mean, you have to go with someone that you really trust at the end of the day is going to be there when things are going good and things are going bad.
Okay, I love it. Next would be, do you think even if kids aren't necessarily high end bound for the NHL, maybe they want to play Division 1 hockey, maybe they want to play major junior. Do you think that the advisor is an important part of that process as well? Because you
Yeah,
don't, maybe sometimes those kids might not be expected to make the NHL, but it's still competitive to land a scholarship or land a
100%.
contract in the East Coast League sometimes to allow kids to pursue their dreams and passions and play a little hockey, when even after they're done with college. So what do you think about that?
100%. And I mean, again, it's just as important, in terms of trust and stuff at that level as well. And, working towards that goal because I mean, it's still a goal. But having an advisor that, you could focus on the ice, you could focus on the practice, you could focus on getting better, and you have someone full time in the background, vouching for you, finding teams, finding opportunities. I mean, it goes a long way. And I mean, again, if you look at the numbers nowadays, every person in D1 for the most part, I would say like 95% have somebody pushing in the background and you have the 5% that are capable by themselves, which are extremely lucky and super cool. But I mean, 95% of people I would say have someone in the background, building the framework, building the path for them.
Yeah, so I mean, there you go. You're probably right, 95%. So it's like, I mean, am I that good enough to be in that 5% where I can do it on my own? I don't know. It's yeah, it is what it is. It's how it is in the year 2023 in the sport of hockey, and it's reality,
Yeah.
right? And so,
Yep.
okay. And so obviously you're north of the border. We're in the United States, and college hockey is a big deal. I know that there have been, several players from the United States who have gone on to have success in the CHL. You think about Dustin Bufflin or Bobby Ryan or
Hmm.
um, Keith Yandel, I think, and even Charlie Coyle. He left Boston University, went to the Q. And so, what is the in Canada? You now you see kids like Owen Power and Adam Fantilli, for example, and now you got Macklin, who will be at Boston University, I think, next year. Like, what is the perception of college hockey from the Canadian side? Because I know what the CHL is from the United States side. So what do you think that if you have a kid who says he wants to look at NCAA versus maybe playing for the London Knights, for example, like how do you approach something like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, it's starting to explode here. Where I mean, 5 years ago, when I was growing up, the word NCAA Division 1 hockey, like, you never heard it. When you heard NCAA, I thought basketball or football sort of things. But I mean, I would say it's like pretty 50-50 nowadays here, where, a lot of kids are, at least entertaining that option. and are well aware of it, because it's becoming like a dominant path as well. Where, I mean, again, I grew up in CHL, so I mean, like, everybody knows, the Ottawa 67. Everyone knows the London Knights and all that sort of stuff. But for example, I was at the Senators game last night, and they were having like a trivia on the jumbotron, and they were saying how many of the Senators have come and signed from NCAA Division One, and it was seven. And I mean, when you think about seven on one team in the NHL, when you're mixed in with Russians, Finnish, Swedish players, seven is a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, like, in my opinion, I've totally changed my uh, opinion on it. Where, I mean, again, it is starting to become the go-to route in terms of turning pro. Because I mean, the way that I look at it, when I go to a CHL game or an OHL game, how many of these kids are going to be ready to step into an organization at 20? Like, very,
Hmm.
very few are capable of doing that. Where, if I leave school at 24, I'm 4 years older, 4 years mature, I'm better, stronger in every single way. So I mean, again, it's just becoming more of the obvious choice.
Yeah. And I think, not saying one is right or one is wrong, but I can just remember from my experience, sometimes the CHL guys weren't physically ready at age 18, where you're saying, okay, well, he's going to go back to junior and play 70 games a year. Maybe the strength and conditioning program isn't that great. Maybe they play like so many games in so little time. Where the college kids had a little bit more time, 30 to 40 games max. They're in the weight room twice a week. They're practicing a lot more than they're playing. So I saw both sides of it. I saw, the college player become bigger, stronger, then go over to the NHL. And I did see some kids who played in the NHL at 18 that weren't necessarily physically developed, but they got it in the next couple of years. But they also got those very, um, I guess, the positive experience of playing those NHL games. So it's either or, right? It's
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and so that being said, like, so if a kid working with you guys, is considering the NCAA, you're going to definitely help him explore those options and whatever option he wants to do, right?
100%. And I mean, Adrian, for the most part, kind of leads the way on the NCAA side, which he does really well. But obviously, we work on a tandem, on
Yeah.
both sides, whether it's CHL or NCAA. But, I have, really no opinion in it. I mean, I will never say to a client, like, hey, listen, you got to go CHL, you got to go take this deal. I mean, I always say it to everybody, like, I'm not the one that has to live with the repercussions of where you sign. I'm not the one that has to show up to school for 4 years or show up to London Nights for 4 years.
Yeah.
That's you. So I mean, I could always give my opinion, and suggest stuff, but I mean, like I said, you're the one that has to live with it, so you have to be the one that makes the ultimate decision.
Right. I think that's, like you mentioned, about the NCAA from a Canadian perspective. I still think that the CHL is looked at in that light from United States perspective. I guess I know more about it from my work in the National Hockey League and all the players I've worked with out of there. But, your typical parent, maybe from maybe Minnesota, who, doesn't follow the NHL that much, but has a really talented son who plays hockey, might get drafted by the WHL, and they might be like, okay, what is this? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's a good perspective to get from. I really like that one. So okay, tell me about Import Sports. Where do you see the future going? And talk about Devco, and talk about all that you guys do. And yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I mean, Import Sports, like I said, we could honestly say we kind of started from the bottom. I mean, again, working the free contracts and stuff, and 5, 6 years later, this is our first year where we have a handful of guys, getting 20 to 25 NHL interviews each. Really, I guess, candidates for the NHL draft. So I mean, it's really taking that next level in business where, again, like, now, now we have to deal with the bankers, now we have to deal with insurance, real estate agents and stuff, preparing these guys for what could come, let's say, in terms of, once you make the NHL, there's a lot more pieces to the puzzle than just show up and play hockey. There's 100 different things that go behind, beyond the scenes or whatever. So that's kind of what we're preparing for right now, is, just create that pipeline of continuous players going through the NHL draft, and build our business that way.
Mhm.
Um, And in terms of Devco is, one of the leaders right now in North America for, tournament travel teams. We started that up. This is our second summer, and we've grown it tremendously. I mean, it's shocking how fast it's grown so far. But we're doing the European tours, all through Europe. I think it's like Finland, Sweden, Germany. There's a handful. I'd have to go and take a look. There's France and all that sort of stuff. But we also do all the tournaments like World Youth Championship in Philly, WSI Nashville, which are the premier events for 07s, 08s. But yeah, it's been truly, truly amazing.
That's awesome. So Import Sports, importsports.ca, and that's their
Correct.
website. And again, folks, this podcast isn't just going to be on strength and conditioning. We're going to have people like Cody on here. I have some other guests lined up, some college coaches, hopefully some NHL coaches down the pipe. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Cody, do you have anything else to add? Where
No,
can
thank you
where
so
can
much for your time.
we importsports.ca is the website. Where are you on social?
Social media, I'm ISM Cody.
Okay. ISM Cody on Instagram and Twitter.
Correct.
Correct. So there you go, folks. And yeah, Cody, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Thank you so much.